Look, I'm going to level with you. When I woke up on Station Kepler 9 that morning, my biggest concern was whether the coffee machine in Sector 7 was going to explode again. Third time this month. Turned out some genius had been putting actual coffee beans into a machine designed for synthetic caffeine pods. Who does that? I'm Jack Morrison, by the way. Official title, Maintenance Technician Grade 3. Unofficial title, the guy who fixes stuff when it breaks, and also the guy who gets blamed when it breaks again. I've been working on Kepler 9 for 2 years now, and in that time I've learned 3 important facts about life in space. 1. Never trust the recycled air after Taco Tuesday. 2. If something's beeping and you don't know why, just tighten the nearest bolt until it stops. 3. When an 8-foot-tall alien with 4 eyes and panic in all of them comes running toward you, your day is about to get significantly worse. Commander Vex found me elbow deep in the coffee machine, trying to explain to a very confused ensign that no, you cannot brew espresso by increasing the pressure valve to maximum. That's how you get shrapnel coffee. Very exciting. Totally not recommended. Morrison, Vex barked, and I'm telling you, when a Kralix barks at you, it sounds like someone's gargling gravel while simultaneously strangling an accordion. You are human, yes? I looked down at myself. Last time I checked, yeah. Why, did something change? Come with me, now. Crisis level Omega. Crisis level Omega, that's bad, right? That sounds bad. I'd only been on the station for 2 years, but I'd learned that anything with Greek letters in the name meant somebody important was having a very bad day and wanted to share the experience. I followed Vex through the corridors, past the usual crowd of aliens going about their business. Station Kepler 9 is a hub for 47 different species, which means it smells like a combination of antiseptic, exotic spices, and whatever the Gorath consider perfume, but everyone else considers a war crime. We ended up in the central communications chamber, which is basically the fancy way of saying the room with the big important thing that nobody is supposed to touch. And there it was, the beacon tower. If you've never seen a beacon tower, imagine the most over-engineered piece of technology you can think of. Now add crystals, and lights, and floating geometric shapes that make your eyes hurt if you look at them too long, and make the whole thing hum at a frequency that makes your teeth itch. That's a beacon tower. This particular tower was about 3 stories tall, covered in panels that displayed symbols in about 40 languages, and currently doing absolutely nothing except sitting there like the galaxy's most expensive paperweight. Oh, good, I said. You brought me to look at the thing I'm definitely not qualified to fix. Standing around the tower were about 30 aliens, all of them looking various degrees of stressed. I recognized Chief Engineer Cora, a Nexian with 6 arms who I'd worked with before. Brilliant engineer, terrible at poker. Never play poker with someone who can shuffle 6 decks at once but can't bluff to save their life. Jack Morrison, Cora said, all 6 arms gesturing frantically. Thank the Ancient Ones, the beacon has stopped functioning, and we have exhausted all conventional solutions. Exhausted? I looked at the crowd of technicians, scientists, and very important-looking people standing around staring at the tower like it might start working if they glared hard enough. What exactly have you tried? Here's the thing about ancient alien technology. Everyone treats it like it's magic, and I mean everyone. You'd think after 10,000 years of use, somebody would have written a decent instruction manual, but no. Instead, you get phrases like, commune with the machine spirit, and align your consciousness with the eternal frequency. Which is great for philosophy students, not so great for actually fixing anything. Ihora pulled up a holographic display showing a list of procedures they'd already attempted. The list scrolled for about 30 seconds. I stopped reading after ceremonial chanting sequence 742. We have performed every diagnostic in the ancient manuals, Cora explained. We have consulted with the keepers of the old knowledge. We have aligned the quantum resonators. We have sacrificed 3 synthetic chickens to the machine gods. The chickens were Dr. Kethis's idea, Commander Vex added, shooting a glare at a tall, thin alien covered in what looked like purple fur. Dr. Kethis adjusted his ceremonial robes with what I can only describe as academic smugness. The historical texts clearly indicate that the ancients believed in ritualistic appeasement of technological entities. I have published 47 peer-reviewed papers on this very subject. Have any of those papers actually fixed anything? I asked. The silence that followed answered that question pretty clearly. I walked around the tower, looking at it from different angles. The aliens watched me like I was performing surgery, which made me incredibly nervous because I was just looking at the thing. Okay, so, basic question. Did you try turning it off and on again? The collective gasp from the assembled crowd suggested I had just proposed something obscene. The beacon tower cannot simply be turned off, Dr. Kethis said, his voice dripping with condescension. It operates on principles that transcend simple binary logic. To deactivate it would be to disrupt the quantum entanglement matrices that... So that's a no on the turning it off and on again? Cora's 6 arms fidgeted. The protocols for full system shutdown require a council of elders, 3 days of preparation, and the alignment of 4 celestial bodies. Right. Okay. What about checking the connections, making sure everything's plugged in properly? Plugged in? Commander Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Morrison, this technology predates the concept of plugs by several millennia. So it runs on what? Good vibes? Essentially, yes, Dr. Kethis said, completely missing my sarcasm. The tower operates by harvesting zero-point energy from the quantum foam of spacetime itself, filtered through consciousness-reactive crystalline matrices. I stared at him. That's a lot of words that mean you don't actually know how it works, isn't it? His purple fur ruffled indignantly. I have dedicated my life to understanding ancient technology. And yet here we are, looking at a broken tower. I turned to Cora. How much time do we have? 6 hours, Cora said quietly. The Galactic Council is scheduled to convene. Without the beacon, 47 star systems cannot communicate. Trade routes will collapse. Diplomatic negotiations will fail. There may be wars. No pressure then. I walked closer to the tower, ignoring the protests from Dr. Kethis about maintaining proper reverential distance. There was a small panel near the base, and on that panel was a tiny light. It was blinking. Not randomly, but in a pattern. ... .. Hey, what's this light mean? Every alien in the room turned to look at where I was pointing. That indicator has been studied for 3 centuries, Dr. Kethis said. The prevailing theory is that it represents the tower's meditation cycle, communing with the cosmic consciousness. Or maybe it's trying to tell you something? We have analyzed the pattern extensively. It contains no meaningful data according to any known ancient language or mathematical sequence. I looked at the pattern again. ... That's SOS. Pardon? SOS. It's an Earth distress signal from, like, the 1900s. Morse code. I looked around at the blank stares. You're telling me nobody's tried talking to this thing in Morse code? The silence was deafening. What followed was probably the most frustrating hour of my life, and I once spent 3 days explaining to a Gorath engineer why you can't fix a leak by hitting it with progressively larger hammers. Cora insisted on demonstrating their proper diagnostic sequence, which involved 6 technicians standing around the tower, chanting in harmony while waving crystals in specific patterns. It looked like a very organized rave, minus the fun, and plus a lot of religious significance. The tower must sense our unified intention, Cora explained, as the chanting reached a crescendo. The tower continued doing nothing. Dr. Kethis was up next with his emotional state analysis. He had wheeled in what looked like a massive synthesizer hooked up to a supercomputer. The ancients believed their technology possessed consciousness, he lectured, adjusting various dials. Therefore, we must determine the tower's current emotional state and respond accordingly with appropriate harmonic therapy. He played what I can only describe as the worst music I've ever heard. Imagine a cat being slowly lowered into a bathtub while a theremin plays in the background. For 20 minutes. The tower's response was to dim slightly, which honestly I sympathized with. Commander Vex's approach was more direct. Perhaps the tower requires motivation, he announced, pulling out what looked like a military-grade intimidation device. He proceeded to threaten the tower with decommissioning, dismantling, and being replaced by newer technology. The tower remained unimpressed. I raised my hand. Can I suggest something? If you're going to propose hitting it, Morrison, that has been attempted, Vex said. Actually, I was going to suggest that maybe the problem is simpler than you think. What if the tower's just waiting for a specific input, like a password? The ancient civilizations did not use passwords, Dr. Kethis scoffed. Such crude security measures were beneath them. Right, they used consciousness reactive quantum whatever. But what if that broke? What if there's a backup system that nobody knows about because everyone's too busy treating this thing like a religious artifact to actually troubleshoot it? That suggestion went over about as well as you'd expect. This is a sacred relic, Dr. Kethis sputtered. This is a piece of technology, I countered. And technology breaks. And when it breaks, you fix it by figuring out what's wrong, not by playing weird music at it. Cora's arms twisted in what I'd learned was their species' version of uncomfortable agreement. Jack raises a valid point. We have perhaps been too focused on ancient methodologies. Heresy, Dr. Kethis muttered. Look, I said, I fix coffee machines. And you know what I've learned? Doesn't matter if it's a coffee machine or a spaceship engine or apparently a 10,000-year-old communication device. They all break for simple reasons. Loose connection, worn part. Sometimes they just need a reset. The tower cannot be reset without, Dr. Kethis started. Yeah, Council of Elders, celestial alignment, I got it. I looked at the blinking SOS light again. Give me 5 minutes alone with this thing. Commander Vex's 4 eyes narrowed. Absolutely not, you might damage it. It's already broken. How much worse can I make it? That logic didn't seem to comfort anyone, but Cora surprised me by nodding all 6 arms in agreement. Perhaps a fresh perspective, unburdened by traditional approaches, is what we need. 5 minutes, Jack Morrison, but I am posting guards outside. Fine by me. The room cleared out, though I could see Dr. Kethis shooting me looks that suggested he was already planning my funeral. Or possibly just planning to write paper number 48 about how I destroyed the galaxy's communications network. The door sealed shut, and I was alone with the tower. Okay, so here's where I probably should have been more nervous. Ancient technology. 10,000 years old, smarter people than me, had tried to fix it and failed. But honestly, I was mostly annoyed. I'd seen this before, not with alien artifacts, obviously, but with technology in general. People overcomplicate things. They see something fancy and old and assume it must be operated with fancy old methods. Meanwhile, the problem's usually something stupid like a stuck button or a corrupted file. I knelt down next to that blinking light. ... SOS. A distress call in a code that hadn't been used on Earth in over a century. Why would an ancient alien tower be using Earth Morse code? Unless... Oh, you've got to be kidding me, I muttered to the tower. You've been listening to us. To Earth. You picked up our old radio broadcasts, didn't you? The tower obviously didn't answer, but the light kept blinking. Same pattern, like it was waiting for something. I pulled out my multi-tool, found the tapping function, and tapped back on the panel. 3 short taps, 3 long, 3 short. SOS received. The light stopped blinking. For a second, nothing happened, and I thought I'd just made everything worse. Then a new panel lit up, near the base, displaying a single symbol. It looked almost like a question mark, if question marks were written by someone who'd never seen a question mark but had the concept described to them by a very confused tourist. Okay, you want to know something? What do you want to know? I looked at the panel, then at the tower. Are you asking if I can help? Nothing. Are you asking if I know what I'm doing? Still nothing, but I swear the tower dimmed slightly, which felt judgmental. Then it hit me. The SOS, the waiting. You need someone to reset you, don't you? But not the ceremonial way. You need someone to just... ask. I felt ridiculous. I was talking to a machine, but then again I'd talked to plenty of machines before. You'd be surprised how often talking through a problem helps you solve it, even if the thing you're talking to can't actually respond. All right, listen, I said to the tower, keeping my voice low. I'm going to be straight with you. I don't know the ancient protocols, I haven't read the sacred texts. I don't even fully understand what quantum entanglement is, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Kethis doesn't either. But here's what I do know. You're broken. You need fixing. And sometimes the way to fix something is to just try again. I placed my hand on the panel, feeling the slight warmth of whatever energy was running through it. So, here's what I'm asking. Try again, reset, start over, whatever you need to do. Nothing happened. Please. The tower hummed. It was a soft sound at first, barely audible, but it built quickly. Panels that had been dark for who knows how long suddenly blazed with light. Symbols scrolled across displays in languages I couldn't read, cycling through what must have been thousands of years of stored data. The geometric shapes floating around the tower began rotating, faster and faster, until they blurred into rings of light. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stabilized. The tower stood there, humming contentedly, all systems showing active. The SOS light had stopped blinking and now glowed steady green. I stared at it. You have got to be kidding me. That worked. The tower, of course, didn't answer, but a small screen near the base displayed a message in English. Thank you for your patience. System restored. Have a nice day. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The galaxy's most important piece of communication technology, stumped by the best engineers from 47 different species, fixed by saying, try again and please. I walked to the door and opened it. Every alien in the hallway tried to act like they hadn't been pressed against it listening. You can come in now. It's working. The stampede of excited aliens nearly trampled me. Cora reached the tower first, all 6 arms flying over control panels, checking readouts, confirming what their eyes were already telling them. The tower was online, fully operational, like nothing had ever been wrong. Impossible! Dr. Kethis breathed, his purple fur standing on end. How did you do this? I asked it nicely, I said. No, but seriously, Commander Vex demanded. What ancient technique did you employ? What human ritual awakened the tower? I'm being serious. I asked it to try again and I said please. That's it. The silence that followed was the kind of silence you get when you tell a room full of experts that you solved their impossible problem by doing the most obvious thing imaginable, and they absolutely cannot accept that answer. Dr. Kethis recovered first. Fascinating. Clearly the tower has been programmed to respond to specific harmonic frequencies only achievable by human vocal cords. The particular resonance of your species' larynx must have triggered a quantum cascade response in the consciousness matrices, allowing for a fundamental realignment of... Or, I interrupted, it just needed someone to treat it like a machine instead of a religious artifact. Heresy! Dr. Kethis sputtered, but his academic gears were already turning. I could practically see paper number 48 forming in his brain. The anthropological implications alone warrant extensive research. The tower's response to human interaction patterns suggests a previously unknown connection between ancient civilizations and... Morrison! Commander Vex cut in, his military brain working a different angle. This technique must be classified immediately. If other species learn that humans possess the ability to interface with ancient technology through some innate quality. It's not an innate quality. Anyone could have done this. Then why, Cora asked gently, did we not? That was a good question. I looked around at the assembled experts, the brilliant minds from dozens of species, all of whom had failed where I'd succeeded. Because you overcomplicated it. You saw something old and mysterious and decided it had to be operated with old, mysterious methods. But what if the civilization that built these towers was just really good at engineering? What if they built in fail-safes? I walked back to the tower, gesturing at it. Think about it. This thing's been running for 10,000 years. It's supposed to be used across the galaxy by hundreds of different species. What happens if the people using it start to forget how it actually works? What if they start treating it like magic instead of technology? Locks up, Cora said slowly. It locks up, I confirmed, and it waits for someone to approach it the way it was meant to be approached, like a tool, like a machine that needs maintenance and troubleshooting. It was probably sending that SOS for years. And everyone ignored it because they were too busy chanting and waving crystals. Dr. Kethis looked like I'd slapped him. Are you suggesting the ancients were not mystical beings of higher consciousness? I'm suggesting they were engineers, really good ones. They built something that could last 10,000 years and included a reset function for when people inevitably forgot how to use it properly. That's not mystical, that's just smart design. A new voice spoke up from the back of the crowd. He's right. Everyone turned to see who'd spoken. It was a small alien I didn't recognize, wearing the robes of a historian. I've been studying the ancient texts for decades. There are references, brief ones, to the builders. They're always described the same way: practical, efficient, focused on function over form. We assumed those were metaphors, but what if they were literal descriptions? The ancients were IT professionals, I said. The galaxy's first IT department. They built this network, and they knew that eventually people would start treating it like magic. So they programmed a failsafe. If the tower detected that users were approaching it with the wrong mindset, it would lock down until someone showed up who treated it like what it is: a sophisticated piece of technology that needs proper troubleshooting. The historian was nodding excitedly. There's a text translated as the Builder's Testament. It contains a phrase that never made sense. When the tools become temples, they shall sleep until the pragmatic return. We thought it was poetry. It was an instruction manual, I said. Commander Vex's military bearing cracked slightly, and I saw something that might have been respect in his 4 eyes. Morrison, the Galactic Council needs to know about this. You've potentially unlocked the key to reactivating hundreds of ancient devices across the galaxy. Great. Send them a memo that says try turning it off and on again, and always say please to your technology. I'm going back to fix the coffee machine in Sector 7. The Galactic Council meeting went ahead as scheduled, now that 47 star systems could actually communicate with each other again. I didn't attend. I had better things to do, like finally fixing that coffee machine and explaining to the Sector 7 crew that no, the tower incident did not mean you could fix the coffee machine by asking it nicely. Different principles entirely. Commander Vex found me 3 days later. Morrison, the Council has approved a promotion. You're being offered the position of Chief of Ancient Technology Recovery and Maintenance. Salary increase of 400%, full access to all ancient sites across the galaxy, your own research team. Nope. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Nope. I like fixing coffee machines. I understand coffee machines. Ancient alien artifacts that operate on quantum consciousness or whatever. That's stressful. I'll pass. But you're the only one who's successfully reactivated a beacon tower in 3 centuries. Because I treated it like a broken machine instead of a mystical puzzle. Anyone can do that. You just have to stop overthinking. I finished tightening the last bolt on the coffee machine and hit the start button. It hummed to life, dispensing a perfect cup of synthetic caffeine. See? Simple. Vex stared at the coffee machine like it had personally offended him. The Council insists you at least consult on other ancient technology failures. Fine, I'll consult. My consulting advice is stop doing weird rituals and start doing basic troubleshooting. 90% of tech problems are solved by checking if it's plugged in, turning it off and on again, or asking nicely. Bill them hourly. I heard later that Commander Vex had personally updated the Galactic Military Technical Manual to include the Morrison Protocol, which was basically just common sense, troubleshooting techniques presented with a lot of fancy language to make it sound official. Dr. Kethis wrote paper number 48, titled The Anthropological and Technological Implications of Polite Requests in Machine Cognition. It was apparently very well received in academic circles and completely missed the point. Cora stopped by my workshop a week later with a list. Jack, there are 47 other ancient devices across the galaxy that have not functioned properly in decades. Would you be willing to? Does it involve more chanting? Probably, yes. Then no. Cora's 6 arms drooped in disappointment, but one of them sneakily left the list on my workbench. I pretended not to notice. 2 weeks after the tower incident, I got an alert on my datapad. Another ancient device had stopped working, this time on Station Helios 4. The message was marked urgent, crisis level Omega, and requested my immediate assistance. Apparently, an ancient atmospheric processor that maintained breathable air for 6 million inhabitants had decided to take a vacation. I sighed, grabbed my toolkit, and booked a shuttle. As I headed to the docking bay, I passed Dr. Kethis lecturing a group of students about proper reverence when approaching ancient technology. The key is to align your consciousness with the eternal. Morrison, where are you going? Helios 4, their air processor broke. That device has been maintained by a team of specialists for centuries. What could you possibly do that they cannot? I'm going to try turning it off and on again, I called back. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to ask it nicely. His sputtered response followed me down the corridor, something about heresy and proper protocols and academic integrity. I grinned. Give it a month, and he'd be writing paper number 49 about how polite requests represent a fundamental breakthrough in human-machine interface theory. The truth was simpler than that. Humans aren't special because we're stronger or smarter or more advanced than other species. We're special because somewhere along the way, we forgot that technology should be intimidating. We broke that barrier between the mystical and the mechanical. We started treating our tools like tools, not like artifacts from divine beings. The ancients knew that would happen eventually. They built their technology to last until someone came along who'd look at a 10,000-year-old communication tower and think, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" They just didn't expect it to take quite so long. As I boarded the shuttle to Helios 4, I pulled out my datapad and recorded a quick message for the technical team there. "Hey, Jack Morrison here. Before I arrive, try something for me. Find whatever indicator lights or displays the processor has and check if any of them are blinking in a pattern. If they are, let me know what pattern. Also, have you tried asking it nicely?" I know that sounds weird, but trust me on this one. I leaned back in my seat as the shuttle launched, heading for another station with another broken ancient device and another group of experts who'd tried everything except the obvious. The galaxy was full of technology that nobody understood anymore, treated like magic instead of machinery. And somewhere out there, I'd bet anything the ancients were laughing. They'd built their legacy to outlast civilizations, to wait patiently through millennia of mysticism and confusion, knowing that eventually someone would show up with a toolkit and common sense. They just probably didn't expect that someone to be a human who normally fixed coffee machines. But hey, a broken machine is a broken machine. Doesn't matter if it brews coffee or broadcasts across the galaxy. The principles are the same. Check the connections, look for obvious problems, turn it off and on again if necessary, and always, always remember to say please. Because apparently, good manners work on ancient alien technology just as well as they work on everything else. Who knew?